So now I'm working on the rear battery mounting system, and the first step is to cut out a lot of the unnecessary metal to make room for the rear battery, and then to start fabricating the actual mounting system. So how do you know how much to cut out? Well, you make a mock-up. So this is a scale to the 1/10 of an inch mock-up of the rear battery, and as you can see, it's going to be a very large battery. And so by using that, I can tell exactly what has to be removed, and then we cut out all of these pieces of metal and get everything ready so that we can reinforce the rear frame sections and then start fabricating the brackets. So the next step in getting this Mustang ready for the rear battery, which is going to take up all of this open trunk area and set back here, is to focus on the frame and structural weakness. So we've studied this problem, and what we've got here is a very strong rear end that bolts through the factory frame. Now imagine you've got all this weight back here, and every time the car goes up and down on a bump, it's going to try to push down, causing this spot to be the weak link in the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a very thick, strong metal plug. We've checked to make sure it clears the shocks, and we're going to extend metal down off this rear end. But now the rear end has to stay bolt removable. So this gets welded permanently onto here. Then we're going to box the frame section to add not only more strength, but a lot more surface area for a strengthening plate. So next step is you box this frame area here, something similar to this, of course adjusted properly, and that will be spot welded all across through here and then welded in. Now that you have that extra strength, and this steel plate is here, so imagine that, if you will. The next step is a nice steel plate with bolt holes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on both sides, providing tremendous rigidity right here in this area. Now, once you've done that, and every time the car hits a bump, where does all that force go now? Well, it goes up here to the top of the shock towers. So we're going to do a lot of work here to strengthen this rear end, so that as we upgrade the springs for the weight load, this won't be a weak spot. We had a problem on the Zombie 222 actually there, where we'd hit a couple of really bad dips in the road and found that this was bending and breaking up. So we're going to spend some time and energy there next. But that's the plan. Alright, so the support bars have been positioned, welded, and the welds have ground down smoothly so the plates will fit nice. And it's all looking good. Going to be strong. Alright, so the box has been spot welded in on both sides. I added a secondary plate and seamed it here, and it goes all the way to the back. That way when we put in the rear motor mounts, they'll also have a lot of structural strength. I'm not worried about the rigidity back here, but it's looking good. Then the next step will be to fabricate a plate and some holes here to bolt that in and stiffen it. Excellent. So the rear strengthening efforts continue. Turns out the plates I made didn't meet Alan's test of thickness, so the outer ones have to be redone. As you can see, the rear end's been dropped out. We're going to be doing some strengthening on these shock supports, because you don't want that whole weight load on basically one extended bolt. That would be crazy. It's a nice rear end though. The frame strengthening is now completed, so these are the final plates. We put the test bolts in, and you can see it from this side, and then on the inside, to make room for the battery itself, we decided to weld in these heavy-duty bungs into the plate so it'll act as its own thread, and these are clear to the battery, so it's not a problem. We also dropped out the rear end, and the shocks were going to be a weak point, because where the shock would mount prior to this was right into just a small area here, and a lot of that force is going to go down. You know, as the rear end compresses, it's going to go up into this area, and we know it will ultimately end up bending. It happened on the Zombie 222. So what we did was fabricate these 1/4-inch steel plates, put them at the right angle so that the force is all in line with the strongest part of the plate. Then we extended the plate further out, so now the shock will be cradled in this entire frame, and then we'll use a longer grade 8 bolt. So that should more than handle the additional force on the shocks. Next up, we're going to have to get different springs for the shocks, and also get shocks that are valved for the heavier load. And there you go. And it's done. So now you can see, as I was describing, how the shock will mount now. Really good strengthening.